Hi, welcome to the virtual 14th Street Y. My name is Chrissy Wright. I'm the production manager for the Arts and Culture Department, and I'm here to bring you the next 3 weeks of the 14th Street Y Artist Insight series. For the next 3 weeks, we'll be talking to different staff in the Arts and Culture Department, i.e. my coworkers, about how we got to the 14th Street Y and what we think about working there. So tune in. We'll take questions after the show, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Laura Beatrix Newmark, and I'm the Director of LABA and the Culture Producer at the 14th Street Y. And today I'm very excited to be joined by three of my colleagues, David Stallings, Chrissy Wright, and Courtney Smith. And we're going to hear a little bit about their backgrounds and also about the job that they currently have at the 14th Street Y, which was most definitely not the one that they applied for. So to kick it off, I'm turning it over to David Stallings, the Director of Arts and Culture at the 14th Street Y. Hi, David.
Hey, Laura.
Hi. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to the Y and the job that you initially took and where that led to.
I definitely didn't apply to be the Director of Arts and Culture. I applied for a very low bandwidth program coordinator role for the theater, specifically the theater space. And it was a job that I was going to be able to do remotely at times and often. I'm an actor, I'm a writer, and I often do leave the city and do shows in various places regionally, or have my plays produced in various places regionally, or leave the country now. International has become my new thing. And so I wasn't looking for anything that was going to be too high level. And 2 months into me working at the 14th Street Y, I was offered to be the theater manager. And I said, okay, as long as I can still be an artist. And then less than a year after that, I was promoted to the associate artistic director. And I said, okay, as long as I can still be an artist. And then last year I was made the director of the program, the Director of Arts and Culture here at the 14th Street Y. And I said, but I'm still an artist. And granted, there's a lot of artistic privilege that comes with being the Director of Arts and Culture, a lot of curation, which I love doing. But I also am an actor and a playwright in my own right. And I have to say the 14th Street Y gets it. And I think a lot of other places wouldn't. They do let me travel. They do let me go internationally with my plays. And it's been a blessing to have people really understand that part of my job being a curator, part of my job networking, means that I still have to stay legitimate as an artist. So I'm really grateful. I'm still kind of in shock that an organization that is not theater-centric has been so adaptable to what a theater professional can really look like.
It's wonderful to hear. And I have to say, David, I know there's something special that you actually did in the theater at the 14th Street Y early on. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like and what it was?
Well, okay, so a little background is I've been performing in the 14th Street Y for the last 10 years. So well before I was hired, they knew me as an artist, which is kind of how that relationship started. I was an actor. Some of my plays were produced at the 14th Street Y, and one of my plays, Dark Water, was produced at the 14th Street Y. It was the 2014 Innovative Theater Award winner for Outstanding Writing. And my husband, Antonio, was in that play. And so we got married on the set, on the stage in the theater at the 14th Street Y. I had no idea I'd be working there about a year and a half later when I got married there. So it just adds extra impact every time I walk into that space, that this is the place where I was united forever spiritually with my husband.
That's wonderful. I feel like on every front, it's really wonderful. So Chrissy, tell us a little bit about the job that you didn't apply for, that you are now doing.
Right, so I first walked into the 14th Street Y to cover for a friend of mine. He did overhire work at the Y, and had a 2-day gig, and he calls me up, I've got this 2-day gig, something has happened, are you available? I was like, yeah, actually, I am available those 2 days. And so I came in to sub on a gig, and like all I was doing was running the light board, and it was just rehearse one night, show the next day. And that was actually for Drunk, which is a long-running LABA activity. And so I met Ronit, who was running LABA at the time. And then a few days later, I got a call from Becky Scoff. And she said, hey, track down your contact information. We have some ideas that we'd love to talk to you about. And I was like, okay. And she's like, great. So we set up this meeting, and she was like, okay, great. Make sure you bring your resume to that meeting. Like, okay. So apparently the Y had somebody who was their technical coordinator working there part-time who was wonderful and did it for years, and everybody loved her. And she left to go pursue other opportunities, and they had a very hard time replacing her. And they thought that, maybe people are just overwhelmed with this job between the LABA part and the renter part. And so why don't we hire somebody to just take care of the LABA part? So originally I was hired to do 6 events. It was just 6 events, flat fee, do these things. Some will be harder than others, and hopefully it'll all work out to be an okay amount of money. I was like, all right, sounds great. Guaranteed 6 events this year. That's wonderful. And I've been working as a freelance lighting and set designer since I moved to New York in 2003. And then a few weeks after I had gotten that, hired, the person who was working as the tech coordinator at the time quit. And so I said, all right, well, we haven't really even figured out where the division of labor is between these 2 jobs when it comes to actually running these events. And like, do I hire the crew for the event, or does she hire the crew for the event? Like, we hadn't even worked on any of that stuff out yet. So I said, so as long as you're willing to, honor the jobs that I've already been hired for the rest of this season, I will do both jobs, because then we can figure out a really good, this is my job, this is their job. Take time to find somebody who's the right fit rather than just putting somebody in who's going to quit right away. And then when the year starts in July, everything will be great to move forward. And after a few weeks of that, it was like, well, what would it take to keep you here? And I said that I wasn't going to work 2 part-time jobs. I needed a full-time job with a salary and a benefits package and the whole 9 yards. And they said, okay. And I thought that was never going to happen. And then a few weeks later, they turned around and they said, all right, we've got it worked out. I was like,
And Chrissy,
yeah.
Right as that was happening was when I was interviewed for my little minor position, and you interviewed me.
Mm-hmm.
And then within 3 months, I was your supervisor.
Yeah, because I actually remember being in the interview committee for David, and I was like, David, you have your own theater company, and you've been managing a restaurant, and are you sure you really want this job where you're not going to be in charge? And David was like, yeah, no, I think this is going to give me a really good opportunity to shift my personal focus. And then, within, a couple of months, David was my boss.
I really was trying not to be in charge, you guys.
Yeah. Well, no, and also, to David's credit, I think that, particularly with the way this all rolled out, it was very, quick and dirty, and not necessarily the most well thought out method of adapting an entire theater program. But
happens.
we're all, make it work kind of people, so we've made it work. And, David has never tried to be, my boss. I tell people all the time that, well, until David became artistic director, but when he was still the theater manager, it was like, all right, so if it's a problem about a person, go talk to David. And if it's a problem about a thing, come talk to me. And that was really just kind of how the theater ran. And that, David's like, I don't understand what you do, so I'm just going to trust and believe you when you tell me something has to happen the way it has to happen. And yeah, I think that, that kind of approach has been part of why we've been able to, take these jobs that we never applied for and run with it.
And also, I think what you're talking about too is the support that artists get and empowering artists on their own turf for what they do well and not stepping on toes and recognizing that art is collaborative and that this department functions really beautifully in showcasing the talents that everyone has so that they can thrive. So that brings me to Courtney, who I still remember when I started. Walking into an office, I feel like there were 5 people, maybe there were 3, and you were on a desk that was wobbly and not permanent. And I feel like you had just graduated from NYU or not that far. I mean, it was around that time or a few years after.
It was weeks after, actually.
Tell us all about it. What was your journey and what are you doing now that you have now pivoted back to working with the 14th Street Y?
Yeah. So I ended up at the 14th Street Y as a temp executive assistant. Was the first job that I was, I guess, hired for, because a good friend had sent me a Facebook message that the executive director at the time, Shira, was looking for, just a temporary assistant. I was like, great, this is awesome. I just graduated. I don't have a job. I hear they have a theater. This is great. It'll at least give me like a couple weeks to a month to figure out what I'm doing. Mind you, at this point, I had no apartment. I was living out of my suitcase back at my mom's, desperate to get back to New York from Boston, bought a one-way bus ticket back to New York, stayed on a friend's couch. I was at the point where I had to go to the Gap the morning of my first day because I didn't have work clothes. I was an artist. I was like planning on auditioning. I had like leggings and like fun tops and was like, oh my gosh, I need to be a professional tomorrow. And showed up at the Y. I had lived across the street and in the neighborhood for years and never really knew what the building was. Had walked by, seen people working out on the street, and then, that was 5 years ago, maybe. And I feel like I've gone through so many different phases of my life, and the Y has really been a place I boomerang back to and such a core part of my growing up and becoming a professional. So after my first 2 months of being the executive assistant and working with the development team and doing back end stuff, I actually interviewed with David and Becky because there was an opening in the theater. And it was kind of the like perfect timing. I was upstairs. They sent me an email to my temp assistant email address. It was like, can you come downstairs? We want to talk to you. And I had an interview and moved from my upstairs temp office to downstairs in the bunker with you, Laura, eventually. And I think I've sat in almost every office in the building at this point. I've at least been, I've boomeranged a lot around. And then, in my role, it ended up that a lot of what I was doing, and as David got promoted and so many things shifted in the theater, I was doing a lot of marketing work. And I never thought I was going to be in marketing. I had no idea that that was essentially what I did. And then realized that arts marketing specifically, you have to be an artist and have to understand the show and the like emotion that's part of it. And so many arts marketing teams didn't read the script, had no idea how to work with artists, how to talk to artists about their work. and then translating that to actually selling tickets. And I was loving working with LABA and getting to know the artists and figuring out how to best get the word out there and find tactics to actually get butts and seats. So I left the Y, which was crazy. And that was about a year and a half ago. And I started, I co-founded a company, Throughline Creative, with my friend Kelly. And it's all about arts marketing and helping artists find a voice. And I never would have done that if I didn't learn from the Y on how to talk to artists and how to really, the name of our company is Throughline. And we feel that like from the script to the marketing, there has to be that through line on how to get the word out there. And now I'm back at the Y with Kelly, and we're partnering, doing marketing and PR. And it's really cool being, I feel like, a different person from college Courtney, and having, this new role has been really, really fun and is just so meaningful. Being back and being part of a community center is just so cool. There's so many different things happening, and I love that.
I have to say too, I came more from the arts management background, and I remember thinking one time it would be so cool to work at a theater, and I kicked myself when I walked down the hallway behind the theater, and I'm like, I'm working right next to a theater. There's a theater right here. It's so amazing.
There it is.
And I have to say, what the Y recognizing and appreciating the emphasis on the arts and culture, and really empowering a team that is made up of artists and people who really appreciate and support the arts, gives, it really creates a really wonderful environment to bring in art and to showcase art, and to have artists on the staff who get to then showcase their own art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I say one thing that I tell a lot of people that come in as artists is that it's like, we know how hard it is because that's how we all started. And that, number one, get your work out there. Number two, we don't need to make it any harder than it needs to be, because it's so hard already. And I think that really shows through everything we do, from how we select our partners and how we work with them, and the way we work as a team and as a department, and that we're not gonna try to stuff all the square pegs into the round holes. We're just gonna
when we started 5 years ago now, and it was really the three of us, because Courtney, the position you applied for was my job for 2 months, that then
oh my God, right.
Right, and that job was ridiculous, like this low-key program coordinator job was silly, because you were in charge of basically the marketing for arts and culture, as well as the box office, as well as all the administrative work. And as soon as I started, I was like, this is not a low-key job. It's actually 3 jobs. And now actually those things are owned by 3 different people. And Courtney, and Kelly being the marketing end of representing us for the marketing department at the Y. But it was 3 jobs in one, and we were a rental house. And, with this team plus Ronit, who was leading LABA, and Becky was still involved too, the group, and Becky was the original theater manager, the group decided to make that shift from being a rental house that maybe did 6 nights out of a year, like Chrissy was saying, of our own production, to being a full presenting and co-presenting company, and that everything we did had our curatorial stamp on it, that everything we do is aligned to this mission of putting artists at the center of a community center, and really doing some art that is engaging, some sort of social activism, speaking out, new works, and really having a dialogue between our guest artists in the building and our resident fellowship, LABA, which is Jewish artists anchored in Jewish text, and that's text study that happens, that you're in charge of. So it really was, I think the past 5 years was us growing up, or us teaching the department how to grow up.
Yeah.
And I think also the theater really found its voice, and I think is still, as a department, is now that voice is like going throughout the entire community center. And I think you can really see the way that arts and culture are such a foundation of all the programs, and you see it in the preschool, you can see it, you know, with the work that you're doing with the seniors. And I think that's just amazing as an organization that's in the heart of the East Village. And now we're virtually with all of you in, you know, our little East Village online. And I think it's just amazing as such like a neighborhood that the arts are such a core part of, and being able to see that. And it really has grown in such amazing ways. I mean, even the space physically and the way that it has transformed in the past 5 years. And I mean that with the whole building. My first desk was a TV tray. And that's actually how the Y got new furniture. So you're welcome, fellow staffers there. Jordan took a picture of me and he was like, is this where you're sitting? Because it moves, and I would have to move my computer up and over and back. And I really think that it's amazing how far the organization has really come, and the work that is impacting so many artists. And, you know, it's so great to have been part of that journey. And now seeing this like real season is so cool. From like the first photo shoot where I remember being like, David, I have this idea. We're going to go outside and take pictures and it's going to be crazy. And now that's just something that happens every year. We do a photo shoot, and that's so cool. And I just love that.
And also, you know, I think where the LABA portion comes in has been really beautifully intertwined with the Arts and Culture Department in how we now use the LABA theme to dictate what the theme of the year in the theaters is going to be, and how beautifully that complements, and how wonderfully prescient that's been in terms of what type of work is being presented at any given point. And it's been really fun to see that evolution as well, particularly with this team who all has worked both in arts and culture and LABA. So it's neat to see how everything, the beautiful way organically that things have come together.
Laura, that's exactly right. Because when we all started, it was the LABA program was here, the theater series was here, and then other arts and culture things were in this whole other bracket, kind of called Downtown Jewish Life. And it was like a path and a journey to be like, can this all just be one? Can we just be arts and culture at the 14th Street Y? LAB is our flagship program, but everything speaks to each other. And at the root of it all, we're a JCC. We need to own that we're a JCC. We need to own that we produce diverse programming and that we speak to all cultures, but we have these roots that are LABA, that are rooted in the Jewish, and with LABA specifically the Jewish text.
And I will say I remember attending my first LABA session, and I'm not Jewish, and having that first experience with Jewish text and fully immersing into this experience that I never had before was so cool. And sometimes I think back at like my first session, I felt so uncomfortable because I felt like I didn't know anything and was nervous to say anything. And I remember sitting down, and Ruby was leading the session, who's the LABA scholar, and he handed me one and was like, you gotta relax. And I will always remember sitting there and just being like, okay, okay. And I really feel I learned so much, and the way that Jewish values are just open to everyone, or at least that's how I've experienced it, and the way that they've started to impact my life and I didn't even realize, I think is really cool in an accessible way. And has been such a fun learning experience, being part of something that I didn't think I would ever be part of.
Yeah, and also just to speak on being part of things that I never thought I'd be part of. You know, I've had a lot of job titles at the Y. Currently it's production manager and resident designer, and you know, I've also been Yeah,
job
yeah.
This is where we have a stream and everyone's job titles. If everyone can name each of the job titles they've had in their tenure at why, it would just be on a stream.
It'd be like the CVS receipts. uh, but yeah, the fact that, it's like I have a, technical position, and when you work in the world of theater, like those things have a very distinct, like, you are in charge of this, you are not in charge of this. And so, having that as a job title, but still being asked for my input on how we're going to operate the season and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and what show goes good with this show. And I think it's just absolutely amazing to be considered that way in the kind of job that I have. And I think that that's a really special opportunity that a lot of people don't get. And I think that, again, that just like, really showcases the amount of trust and respect that there is in that building for the Arts and Culture Department, and within the Arts and Culture Department.
I think this has been a wonderfully robust and interesting and insightful conversation with a fabulous team. And I thank you all for sharing your stories. And I thank the Y for giving all of us the opportunities to really thrive and sort of being the ultimate matchmaker, casting agency. Okay, so one thing that I was thinking to ask this group, being on the front lines of theater right now when we're dealing with COVID-19 and being in a field where gathering as a group is actually intensely important and meaningful, where do you see the direction of theater and the arts going now and then in the future?
Well, let's face it, small arts organizations have been hit very hard. I mean, all theaters have been hit in the city. Broadway has been closed for a couple of months, so has Off-Broadway, but so has Off-Broadway. And we're not sure what will be able to come back when and how. What we do know is that probably smaller theater will be able to come back first. Those houses that are gonna be under 60, under 99 will be able to come back first, but who's there to do the work? That's going to be the big question. And that's one thing that, I was talking to some of our grantors about recently. We're funded by amazing grantors, including the Gilman Foundation. And, the EA supporting the arts and keeping this theater running means the world. So many arts don't have larger organizations protecting them and helping them. And the fact that our staff is still working virtually just is a testament to the EA's commitment to arts and culture, to the 14th Street Y, and to the location in general. So we'll be able to come back. And I think our goal is to make artists pay as little money as possible to get their art done. Mm-hmm. The shift from the moment we started this team 5 years ago was to cut the rent, lower the rent. Where can we not charge? Where can we get artists paid and get artists money instead? Now that has to be the focus 100%. We're gonna have to, everyone in downtown Manhattan is gonna have to re-examine their model and gonna have to get away from that rental model, go to a co-presentation, co-production, but try and charge artists as little as possible.
And I also think just given that our theme for the season is humor for the 2020 to 2021 season, I think all of us are going to really appreciate and need that kind of release in the arts as much as we're going to need to deal with the bigger and meatier questions of what we're going through. I think being able to give ourselves that break is also going to be hugely important.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that we just don't know how they're going to play out right now. And I think that, I know that a lot of my personal focus during this time has been, exploring new platforms and figuring out what they are capable of doing and what that means, and also trying to listen to people who go to theater and people who make theater and what's going to help you make your work this next year, and being as helpful as I can to
And I think that sense of community within artists and having, I mean, as a gig worker and a contract employee, having the Y has been literally the saving grace of this whole thing for my company, which our whole platform is arts marketing. If there's no theater, you don't need marketing. So I think that that shift in being able to find community and having other artists and other people that are going through the same thing and being able to find that and pushing through together and having these moments like this virtual talk and how we can pivot and optimize the many different technologies and platforms that we have to still be giving artists a voice and be raising up the content that they're putting out and just supporting each other through this. I think it has to be the future, and I hope that continues when we're all live together.
And just to state, we also need support from our city and state lawmakers and legislature. We need, especially the people who own these premises downtown and throughout the city. The 14th Street Y, we're so blessed. We're so lucky that right now we don't have to worry about making the rent. But these theaters will not be able to come back and support artists unless some sort of rent forgiveness happens immediately. We see theaters closing across this city and in other boroughs, and someone needs to step in and intervene, stop the rent, figure out a way for tax breaks to be made. We know that the first thing being cut is the arts. We're hearing about it. Figure out other ways to make sure that we are still supported because people depend on this income. This is a living, not a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things everyone has spoken to is that the Y artists are number one. They're put forward as the pivotal. In our theater department, it's about the artists and it's about supporting the artists. And I think that the Y, along with our parent organization, the Educational Alliance, has really done a beautiful job of consistently and continually making that the priority. And David, as you said, it's we want to make sure artists can thrive and they need support. And what's going to need to happen in this next phase of reality is that there's going to need to be support for the most vulnerable, and artists tend to unfortunately be in that role oftentimes, particularly in our country where the arts aren't given the same kind of funding as they are in other countries. So
wow, do we need the arts more than ever? New songs, new shows, those are the things getting us through right now. And I think the arts as a mechanism for coping and emotion and community, I think now more than ever, we need those institutions to be supported and artists to be supported so great work can continue to happen.
And so that, comedy and laughter and things that are so cathartic in this moment, that are getting, as you said, that are getting all of us through this. I mean, we are fully getting through because of the arts that are being made, and allowing us to take deep breaths when we look around us and see what else is happening.
For sure.
One thing that I keep thinking about is reading about Winston Churchill, and that, it was like, all right, we just had this war. What are we going to cut? Because something has to get cut. And he was like, well, if we cut the arts, then why did we bother getting through the war? So we can all remember Winston Churchill at this moment.
Listen up, Mr. de Blasio. Please hear us. Governor Cuomo, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us again.
Hi.
Hi, and Chrissy, the quote from Winston Churchill, I think, really resonates in a very strong way. It's something we should keep in mind consistently, because I think it does drive home that message of the core of the country is their arts. So one question I wanted to ask you guys as a team is, how has your job been impacted in terms of the pivot you've had to make during COVID-19, in terms of, we're going from a live theater into virtual rooms, and what kind of programming have you undertaken at the virtual 14th Street Live, or virtual 14th?
Well, the pivot has been huge, right? Because we've had to go from being a space that takes care of its community, whether it be older adults who are coming in for fitness classes or study classes, whether it be, little pre-K humans who are coming in for our preschool,
Mhm.
whether it be people coming in for our after school, whether it be people coming in to play basketball in our gym, or audiences to see our theater. We deal with real people. That's what we all do. None of us are virtual people. None of us, the theater folks, we're not film folks. There's a huge difference there. And so having to make that pivot to everything being virtual, to honoring our artists virtually, to our members virtually, that's been the pivot. And it took us about 6 weeks to really get our minds and souls around it. Chrissy has turned her
Mhm.
little apartment into an in-house production studio. She moved the theater computer into her apartment and is basically running all of these live cultural events through her little mini studio, and we've been having, you and I, Laura, to work with artists on, all right, how do we get this into a Facebook Live? Is this a Zoom? And, unfortunately on Facebook Live, we can't use that word, and how do we make art that is going to be on a Facebook Live? And how do we make art that's going to be a Zoom meeting? But we're doing it. And luckily, people are engaging, and our engagement numbers are climbing, and marketing, and Courtney and Jackie and Rachel and all that wonderful department, Larry, who are all in external engagement, have had to completely rethink who the Y is and how we operate, and pivot to a digital platform that usually takes a year to prepare to do. And we did it literally in under 6 weeks.
Yeah, David is 100% accurate in saying that I am basically running a studio out of my living room now. And this is not anything that I had any prior experience in. But, from being on, tons of shows that involved live video components, and, watching a television show here and there get made, and I was like, I'll figure it out. And here we are.
It's definitely been a journey, and I think we're fortunate in this department of artists that we're adapters and are constantly improving and connecting and having to, make those pivots when necessary. And what's been a fun challenge is figuring out, which platform works best for which program. And okay, we're getting an audience here, and, the parent groups want Zoom, and this should be on Facebook Live. And, we're learning a lot as this is happening live, also literally live right now. And, it's a really cool way to see how we can be finding connection in this virtual space, and also listening to our community and reading those comments. And we're taking that all to heart of what things are working, where we can be growing, and where new programs and new experiences should be. So thank you to everyone that's been commenting online and taking part of these Facebook Live sessions and Zoom sessions, because that is how we're making things better and responding to the community. So thank you for that.
So given that, we've talked about this pivot and we're moving online, I thought we could maybe talk about what's coming up at the 14th Street Y and the virtual platform. We have a big event and long event that is happening in an exciting way. So maybe we can share a little bit about what will be happening on Thursday, May 28th.
So May 28th is my birthday. And so we're just throwing a really big party for me here at the Y. That's only partially true. It is my birthday. But,
Yes.
but I will be working, as will everyone on this call, from 6 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. in honor of Shavuot. We are having a tikkun. It is a virtual tikkun with Downtown Jewish Life, which is an organization of Jewish synagogues and community centers and museums, all located downtown. And we are coming together to provide moments of study, moments of thought, moments of prayer, moments of art, culture, discussion, all in honor of Shavuot, which obviously honors when Moses came down and gave the message to the people from the mountain. And so it's a big celebration of the Torah. It's a big celebration of cheesecake and lactose intolerance or tolerance. And so we're hoping you'll join us. We'll have everything from Israeli concerts to conversations with actors from the hit Netflix show Unorthodox, to spiritual moments, to text study with our local synagogues, to poetry study, to Laba Arts and Culture offerings. It's going to be wow. And I hope you can join us on Facebook Live and sign up for breakout Zoom classes and artistic sessions. Go to our website right now, click on the virtual Tikkun. It is going to be something that you want to join us in for. Have some Prosecco, pre-order your cheesecake. We're going to have a party, and it's my birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's been interesting to try to set this up after, 4 years now of very ambitious live events to now be like, well, where do we go now?
Especially with Tikkun. That's an epic day of preparation with the theater team, and watching that the last couple of years is always exciting as the cheesecake gets delivered, and this shift is going to be really different, but really, the programming is really amazing for that night, and I think it's going to be special in a whole new way, which I'm excited to see how that all plays out.
I want to thank everybody so much in this department for everything you've done, for the evolution that you've made, for the pivot that has happened, and for what we're going to see in the future, which is no doubt going to be exciting and innovative. And thank you all as a wonderful team for sharing and for working together day by day to navigate this in the future.
And thank you, Laura. Laura, you're amazing. And Laura really stepped up. We all stepped up this year in a different way. And Laura is now the director of Laba Fellowship in New York City, which is just genius. And I am inspired by you, by your leadership this year, by what you've done with these fellows. I mean, my goodness, come on the 28th and see the fellows, see the work that Laura has been encouraging them and urging them to do and stimulating them with Jewish text. This Tikkun is a tribute to you just as much as anything else. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you very, very much.
All right. Well, thank all of you again for sitting down and doing this. Next week, we're going to have 3 different members of the Arts and Culture team to talk about their journey into working at the Y and where they are now. So everyone who's watching at home, see you next week. Good to see you guys all again. I miss your faces, and we'll talk soon. All right.
Good. Bye. Thank you all.